A black millionaire disguises himself as a homeless man and gets humiliated in his own restaurant. But the ending is shocking. It was a bustling evening at the famed restaurant Soul's Flavor, one of the city's most prestigious spots, nestled right in the heart of Sao Paulo. The place was known far and wide, not only for its exquisite dishes but for the elegant, high-class vibe that attracted the city's elites. Politicians, celebrities, and business magnates frequented its tables, reveling in the ambience almost as much as in the taste of each beautifully crafted dish. But what few people knew was that behind this culinary marvel stood a man whose journey was as rich and layered as the flavors on his menu. Marcus Silva. Marcus, a black entrepreneur who had defied odds and stereotypes, built Soul's Flavor from the ground up with nothing but raw grit and determination. Transforming this once simple establishment into a beacon of sophistication was no easy feat, but tonight was different. Tonight, Marcus decided to flip the script and do something utterly unexpected. He was going undercover, disguised as a homeless man. He wanted to see how people, his own staff included, would react when they saw him stripped of his wealth, his status, and his polished appearance. Before continuing with this shocking story, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and comment below with the city you're watching from. Reflect on the powerful lesson about appearances and how discrimination is still a harsh reality today. Dressed in torn clothes, his face unshaven and smudged with dirt, Marcus entered through the main doors of his own restaurant. The contrast was stark. He looked like he had stumbled into the wrong world. As he walked into the grand dining area, people's reactions were instant. Some stared with visible disgust. Others whispered to their companions, eyebrows raised in judgment. A few even looked away, as if his mere presence tainted the elegance of the place. Marcus felt the sting of being overlooked and ignored. He had employees who had worked under him for years, yet no one recognized him beneath the rough disguise. One waiter, Jack, looked him up and down with a sneer. Instead of offering help or asking if he needed anything, Jack turned his head and pretended Marcus didn't exist. Undeterred, Marcus approached a nearby table where a couple was enjoying their evening. As he opened his mouth to ask for a simple glass of water, the man at the table snapped, "This isn't a place for people like you. Go beg somewhere else." The harsh words echoed through the dining room, intensifying the uncomfortable atmosphere. Remaining calm, Marcus moved toward the bar area, where his manager, Richard, was busy overseeing the evening's operations. Sensing someone approach, Richard turned, and his expression instantly hardened. Without a single question, he pointed toward the door and barked, "You can't stay here. Leave before I call security." Marcus, still composed, tried to explain that all he wanted was a glass of water. But Richard cut him off sharply, repeating, "You heard me. Get out. Now." The humiliation was raw and public. Here he was, in the very space he had built from scratch, a place where he always emphasized respect for every customer and employee. Yet, in this moment, he was just another nobody to be discarded. It was a gut-wrenching reminder of how much appearances could dictate a person's worth in the eyes of others. Marcus could have easily revealed his identity then and there, but he held back, curious to see just how deep this lack of empathy and respect would go. To Marcus, Soul's Flavor was more than a restaurant. It was a symbol of his personal journey. He had faced countless struggles and endured prejudice, but with resilience and courage, he had transformed his life. In hiring his team, he made it a point to employ those who, like him, came from challenging backgrounds, hoping to give others the opportunity he'd fought so hard for. Ironically, Jack, the very waiter who had dismissed him, was one such employee. A young man from humble beginnings who had once been grateful for the chance to work here. But as the restaurant's success grew, so did Jack's ego, and over time, he began to see himself as part of the elite, forgetting his own roots. Richard, on the other hand, was a seasoned professional who believed that efficiency was everything. To him, maintaining the restaurant's prestige meant eliminating anything, or anyone, that didn't fit the upscale image. As Marcus observed his staff's reactions to him in this disguise, he felt a bitter sense of recognition. How many times had he faced similar judgment before reaching his success? This night wasn't just a test of his restaurant. It was a profound glimpse into the essence of human nature. And as the evening went on, Marcus realized that he would never forget what he was witnessing. Marcus was finally ready for the grand reveal. The humiliation he'd endured throughout the evening would not be forgotten easily. But he was about to unveil his true identity in a way that would leave every single person in that room utterly stunned. The night was only beginning to unfold, and the conclusion would deliver a powerful lesson to everyone present. As whispers and murmurs of discomfort spread among the guests, Marcus, still in his disheveled disguise, decided to test the staff one more time. He ventured deeper into the heart of the restaurant, the kitchen. Here the chefs and assistants moved at a relentless pace, working tirelessly to ensure each dish was flawless. The head chef, Steve, was a man known for his fiery temper and obsession with perfection. He'd been with Soul's Flavor for years, building a reputation for both his talent and his impatience. When Steve heard that there was a homeless man wandering the dining area, he exploded. "How did you all let this happen?" he demanded, furious, as he turned to Richard, the manager. "We have an image to uphold. Get him out of here." But before anyone could move, Marcus lifted his hand, signaling for silence. Slowly, he began to remove his wig, then the tattered, dirty clothes that had concealed his identity. The dining room fell silent, and a collective gasp rippled through the crowd. No one could have foreseen this moment. The man they'd ignored, insulted, and dismissed was now standing before them, not as a homeless intruder, but as Marcus, the owner and creator of everything they saw around them. The looks of shock and disbelief on the faces of those who had treated him with disdain were priceless. Even Richard, who had shown only irritation and contempt moments before, stood frozen, unable to process the revelation. Marcus's voice cut through the stunned silence, filled with disappointment and a calm authority. "Richard," he called, locking eyes with the manager who had dismissed him so callously, and Jack. His gaze shifted to the waiter who had looked down on him earlier. There was no mistaking the heavy disappointment in Marcus's tone. Richard began to stammer, trying to justify himself. But Marcus silenced him with a raised hand. "This isn't just about you," he said, turning to take in the entire room. "This is about all of you. I saw contempt. I saw prejudice. I saw humiliation. And that's something I will not tolerate in my restaurant." Marcus then directed his gaze toward the customers who had ridiculed him. "In this establishment, we treat everyone with respect. If you can't bring yourself to respect people for who they are, and not for what they look like, then this is not the place for you." Among the staff, Amanda, an assistant who had always shown a kind and empathetic spirit, had been silently observing all along. She'd noticed Richard's tendency to fawn over wealthy clients while neglecting those he deemed less important, but she'd never felt empowered to speak up. Over the past few months, Amanda had grown increasingly uncomfortable with Richard's behavior. Driven by her own sense of fairness, she had always made an effort to treat each customer equally, even if it meant going against the norms set by her superiors. Recently, Amanda had started confiding in her coworker John, who shared her discomfort with the toxic atmosphere. Together, they had begun brainstorming ways to change the dynamics at Soul's Flavor, even though they knew that as junior employees, their voices were rarely taken seriously. Little did they know, Marcus's intervention that night would fuel a quiet revolution among the staff, inspiring them to stand up for a more inclusive environment. Meanwhile, the relationship between Steve, the head chef, and Richard revealed itself to be more complex than anyone realized. Although Steve was gruff and impatient, he wasn't necessarily Richard's ally. The two men had an unspoken rivalry, each vying for Marcus's approval in their own way. Steve was less bothered by the humiliation Marcus had endured than he was by the opportunity to strengthen his own standing. He took advantage of the situation to suggest that Marcus should have more control over the restaurant's operations, especially in the kitchen. But Marcus, having witnessed the night's events, saw through the self-interest driving each of them. He wasn't interested in control for control's sake. What he wanted was a team that embodied the values he'd poured into Soul's Flavor from day one. And as the night wore on, the atmosphere within the restaurant shifted, signaling the beginning of a new chapter, one rooted in respect, empathy, and unity.